Well, if you tuned into our last video in regarding the Aussie racing car engines and what's happening with all the drama that you might be seeing online, we've finally come back from Perth after our first race meeting of racing with what I like to call the big boys or the big block engines, the ones that have got a lot more displacement from the original engines. And there's a lot of information to unpack from that event. So stay with me on this video. I'm going to go through the ins and outs, what people have, what they didn't have, what the performance differences were. And we're going to ask that big question. Did it make anything better? Stay tuned, like it, subscribe it, and stay along. Now, if you're not familiar with what's going on, just check back to our last videos about the drama that's happening with Aussie racing car engines. But now we've finally finished up our first race meeting. We went all the way over to Perth with these engines. Come back, you see we're on the hoist trying to get everything all sorted out. And the one thing that came up was why? Tell me why. Why did they come through in 2 races into the season and just say that we want to change these engines, we want to make them bigger? And you can imagine between the turnaround between Tasmania and Perth was about 3 weeks. It was really, really tight to get an engine built or anything built at all. So there was a lot of people scrambling for parts as well, which we'll start talk about that on a different outlet. The main thing was why did they do it? Now, cheating was rampant in the category. There's no doubt about it. Who was doing it and who wasn't doing it, I haven't got that information. So we're going to have to put that aside. But there's no doubt that cheating was just commonplace. The most common thing were people putting bigger pistons, high compression pistons. They were doing work to the heads. They were changing their cam timing. They were the most common ways that they were seen to give themselves a performance advantage over other drivers. Heaps of people have come through and said, why did they do this so suddenly? Why didn't they wait till the end of the season? Now, I got the advantage of talking to the category owners and everyone involved as well, because I am involved with the category, and we could have a real sit down and real talk, talk for hours about this topic and how to make the racing better. Now, whilst a lot of people think it's a real snap decision, I honestly think the decision is probably about 10 years too late. And I think that's how long it's been with unregulated engines that have been into the category. Just, you never know what's going on. You never know how it's happening, but it was happening. The biggest downfall was that it just wasn't getting checked. There was no proper checks being done. People were going outside of the category engine builder. People were getting tags done. People were getting stuff all sorted in that way. And that's how they were getting around these bigger rules. Now, there's no point sitting here and going, oh, they should be punished this, that, and all the other things. It's been done. It's past. It's over that. We can't hold them accountable anymore, because me personally, as someone that we had a legal engine, went to the category engine builders. We followed it as per the letter of the rule. We don't even want to get caught up in it. We want to move on and we want to get past this. So for us to sit there and dwell on the past and what may have been, what might not have been, doesn't matter anymore. I'm not going to sit here and fuddle about it. With this engine change, they had the decision of making sure everyone went back to a standard piston, or they had the decision of everyone gets the bigger piston, you don't get the cry about it anymore, you can't make any more power from it. Now, me personally, I do think that we should have gone back to the standard Yamaha piston. They're an easy thing to check. You can stick a borescope down there, check what's going on, and then be done with it. But I also see the other side of it. With how big the pistons are, you can't really make any more power from them. It's not like making the pistons a lot bigger brings massive amounts of power. The main power is done with the compression and done with where the timing of the cams are. So if you're going to cheat, you're going to try those areas. You're going to put a high compression piston in. And we were able to prove that by running our simulations with the engine builder and going through what was the difference between, say, an 82 mil piston and a 79 and an 80 and an 81. Between those pistons, there was a small increase. There was an increase, but it was small. In regards to having a high compression piston, that's where the massive differences were. Some calculations we were doing, it was 5 horsepower plus, where some of the bigger pistons might have been 1 or 2 horsepower in that sense. So it's not like we've gone from an engine that can put out 135 horsepower on the dyno to all of a sudden putting out 160, 170 horsepower. We've probably seen an increase of around 10 horsepower as whole. The biggest problem between the 2 rounds was the availability of parts. Now, everyone was happy to do it, or not everyone was happy to do it, I should say. People were prepared to do it, is a better way of saying it, but we couldn't get the parts in time. Now, this engine here, what we did, which we think we did all right on the weekend with, other than my DNFs and my stuff-ups, we were 1 mil bigger than the standard piston size, but we had a higher compression piston in there. Still got us in around the top 5 when we were playing there, when I wasn't driving like an absolute wally. But the times were pretty close. There was other people that had the 82 millimeter pistons in there, the bigger diameter from there, that you could see there was a bit of a performance difference in there. But spread from around 2nd to 15th position was around half a second in the best lap times. We weren't seeing people a second or 2 seconds quicker from what there was last year. Now, there was one driver who was able to crack into the 2s or the mid 2s. They own an engine shop, they own a dyno room. They spent a lot of time in development between those rounds to try and get everything perfect. I know for this one, it was a case of get what you can get, slap it in the car and hope for the best. And a lot of other people were with that as well. So as we see the R&D continuing on from that, we're going to see cars get ultimately quicker. Are they going to be highly more strung? We don't know. We did see a few engine failures on the weekend, but to be honest with you, it's commonplace in this category, whether someone was driving it incorrectly or built the engine incorrectly. Sorry, I'm stuttering like I'm misfiring. We don't know. That's up to them as an individual. They've got that control with that, building their own engines and all that. So in a sense, from what we've seen, though, in the racing, though, I was saying from 2nd to 15th position, we've seen the racing was probably the closest racing that I've seen in the category for the last 6-7 years. And I've been in this category since about 2019. Started getting involved in about 2018. So I've had a fair few years in this and know the engines and the cars back to front. It even was difficult when I was coming through the back of the field. I could get myself up to a certain position and then found it extremely difficult to muscle past someone and get past. So it was like between 2nd to 10th position, we were all locked in. And then obviously we started fighting with each other and then we'd start spreading apart, as usually happens over a sprint race. But in turn, I found that the racing was the closest it's ever been. Unpacking of what we're talking about, was the decision done at the right time? Look, it's in the question. I would say it's 10 years too late. Other people would say it's too early. I'll leave that up to everyone else. It's no point arguing about it. We've got to do what we've got to do. Is the racing better? Yes, we're a lot closer. It's a lot harder to pass. They're a lot harder to drive because you've got to muscle past someone. So we're seeing that the racing is beneficial. The downside, obviously, is the availability of parts. We're seeing availability of parts coming hopefully into the country because we've got to import all these parts into the country as well. Hopefully seeing them by mid-season, that's going to get us out of trouble there. And then we're going to go back on to just doing the R&D from our engines. We're really tapped out with what we can do. Unless you get this magic head that hasn't been ported out that you can put on there, you never know. But anyways, from the bottom end, you're limited with the top end. We're making the maximum horsepower there is at the moment. We're hopefully going to see a lot more closer racing as the season goes on. We're hopefully going to see a lot less engine failures. Hopefully it's going to be a lot better. I think we're on the right path. I think it's going to be a lot better for it. I felt the racing was a lot closer and a lot better and a lot tougher. But we'll see. The rest of the season, we've got 4 more races happening. You never know what can happen here. The category's doing the right thing and saying we really want to invest. We want to make this as strict as possible. Another thing on top of that is they brought an engine builder in to really be checking everyone's engines at the race meet. So they were pulling carburetors off. They were checking intakes to see if there's any porting in there. They were getting all their information together. So if someone does step outside the regulations, hopefully they can bring them back in a lot quicker within a race, not within 5 seasons in that sense. So all in all, we're seeing a lot of improvements. I'm pretty happy with how it's going, albeit the time and the parts is the biggest problem at the moment. Within 3 months, we'll probably forget about this and we'll just be racing what's going on. We should see a more reliable and more better engine package that's going to help us out in the long run. So what do you think of the whole situation? I want to see your thoughts below and see what's going on. I love seeing what everyone's been writing about what's happening, but I hope this adds a little bit more behind the scenes in depth of what's going on. Ultimately, we should have a better category. We should have a better engine, and it's just going to get better from here. Tune into our next video next time. It's going to be a cracker.